Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? I haven't made a video over here in the bedroom for quite some time, so I thought I would share a little story with you guys today. It was something I was actually thinking about last night. I was laying in bed and I couldn't fall asleep last night. Last night was the Oscars, and I was so excited because I had watched like 16 movies in preparation for the Academy Awards. And, I get so excited about the stories of the movies and the stories that go into the movies. And one of the things that I did actually the night before in preparation for the Academy Awards was that I love to watch old acceptance speeches for the Academy Awards. And I was watching Viola Davis's acceptance speech when she won for Fences. And in there, she talks about the power of stories, of everyday stories. And the fact that she said something to the effect of, if you want to know the kind of, people ask me all the time, what kind of stories do you want to tell? And if you want to know the kind of stories I want to tell, go to the graveyard and exhume the bodies. And she talks about normal stories. And I was thinking about that, right? Like normal, just everyday stories of everyday people. And, when I got on YouTube, I think that was what I was so attracted to. Because when I had first started watching YouTube like 10 years ago, those were the people that I watched, were just everyday people that were sharing their everyday lives with the rest of the world, and all they were doing that was different was that they were turning on a camera. And I feel that over time, YouTube has really changed, and some of it for the better and some for the worse, obviously, I think that there's, all this stop motion animation and jump cuts and all that, and that's great, right? And that's not what I do. Obviously, we know that. But then I think this whole kind of idea of telling the story of somebody's life morphed into this idea of having to exaggerate real life stories to just get people to watch for the views, for the clicks, for the subscribers, ultimately for the money, right? And I was thinking about this last night because over time what happened was that people that were just sharing stories with their life or stories of their life got replaced by people that were sharing these extravagant stories. And if you look online, you'll see that these are the people that are getting 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 views, are the ones that are telling these extravagant stories of their life, right? Things that they couldn't possibly, in 22 years of living on this earth, have had so many things happen to them, right? I think we know that. I think some of us that are a little bit older might know that, right? Maybe you only need to be 23 to know that, but I think we know that you couldn't possibly have had all of these things happen to you by the time that you're 22, right? So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about, I think that's why I love listening to music and all kinds of music, and if you go through my iTunes library, I buy a lot of music, and when I listen to music, and it tells a story, and the lyrics tell a story, and that's why I love music, and that's why I love to read books, because they tell stories, and ultimately, that's why I love to watch TV shows and movies, Last night, after the Oscars, I watched the last episode of The Last of Us, and then I watched Your Honor and Dear Edward, and then I had recently purchased the movie The Towering Inferno because it was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, and I used to love catastrophe movies. And if you don't know the movie, it's about a building in San Francisco that they call the Glass Tower. It's fictional, but that caught on fire, and so it's about getting everybody out of this building. And so I started watching it last night. I watched about half of it before I attempted to go to sleep last night. And I just, got spinning in my head about this idea of telling normal stories and, how much I really missed just listening to people tell normal stories. And I was laying there, and it was so interesting because I started thinking about something that had happened to me when I was junior high into high school. And then later in my adult life, and how this had kind of like carried over into my entire life, right? And I was like, this is, to me, something that has always been kind of an interesting story that I don't really know the ending to, and I'm sure it's not interesting to a lot of people out there, but it's a simple story. And these are the kind of stories that I like to tell. These are the stories that I like to listen to, because I think they're the stories that really speak to the lives of people. So I wanted to share a story with you guys, and I know it's kind of a bizarre story. So, you know, I've shared a lot on my channels about being bullied and not really fitting in and not having a lot of friends. I don't even know that I really understood this until maybe a couple years ago when I was vlogging and I was talking about this. But probably the darkest years for me, sixth grade was a really good year. For me, it was probably my best year because it was when all the elementary schools kind of merged together. And so people kind of laid off of bullying me for a while. And I made some good friends and things like that. Those friends, we all kind of divided going into 7th grade. And they all kind of went their own separate ways. And so going into 7th grade, I had no friends. And 7th and 8th grade, and part of 9th grade, the tail end of 9th grade was when I met my core group of girlfriends that I had in high school. But up until that point, I really walked the halls of school rather as a ghost. And I sometimes talk about how those were the hardest years for me because I wasn't necessarily bullied, but worse than that, I wasn't seen. I was completely invisible. And so there were very difficult times for me. There were things that I absolutely hated. Gym was one of them. I hated, you know, having to take gym and all this kind of stuff. And I hated riding the school bus. And my mom was very nice. She would like try to pick me up as often as she possibly could. But, you know, there were many times that I had to take the school bus home from school. And so anyway, there was this girl that lived one street over from me, and she and I had gone to school all through elementary school and, you know, junior high and whatever. And we were never really friends, but she was nice to me. You know, she would say, you know, hi or whatever, but like, she was always kind of like jokingly teasing, picking on me, if that makes sense. And she wasn't like the most popular girl in school, and she wasn't the least popular girl in school. She was just, you know, an average whatever. So anyway, I don't know why I remembered this story last night and like why it had such an effect on me. But I would say it was about halfway through the year of 7th grade, I had to ride the school bus home. And her friend, one of her good friends, would ride home with her sometimes because she would like go over to her house like on a Friday to stay the night or whatever, right? And so I would like sit in the seat in front of them or next to them or whatever, and sometimes we would talk. And we were also in orchestra together, this girl and I. And and this other girl was in orchestra as well. And they had this plastic Snoopy dog. It was like almost kind of like an ornament or something like that. It was like this big. I don't know why I have to like show it in the camera, but it was like this plastic Snoopy, right? Like Snoopy from the Peanuts. And they named him Buddy. And anyway, one day, she would like always have it out with her like when she was on the bus, and she was like, this is Buddy, say hi to Buddy and whatever. And I was like, this is so stupid, but I was like, hey Buddy. And so anyway, one day when we were in the orchestra room, she had left Buddy laying next to her instrument case. And so I took Buddy and I left a ransom note like I had kidnapped Buddy, right? And I thought that this would be really funny. So this went back and forth for the better part of probably the next 2 years. And it was kind of this unspoken thing. Like, we would never speak of it. Like, we would never, like, if we were sitting next to each other on the bus, we would never say anything about it or anything like that. But, like, I would leave them ransom notes, and then they would leave, like, you know, like, if I would say something like, I need a miniature candy bar, and then you can have Buddy for, like, a day, but then you have to have, and then they would leave, like, Buddy in this back, and so it's, like, this whole thing that went back and forth for, like, literally, like, 2 years, right? But never was spoken of. Like, they would leave me a miniature candy bar, and then I would leave Buddy, the Snoopy dog, you know, back by the case and whatever. And, so anyway, I think what moves me is, like, in that 2 years of never speaking about this stupid plastic ornament, right? Like, in some indirect way, they, like, paid me attention. Like, they noticed me. They saw me, right? And I think one of the most valuable things that we can do for human beings is to see them. Is to say, I see you. I hear you. You're not alone, right? At the end of my vlog every day, I say, you know, most importantly, make sure that you reach out to somebody and let them know how much they mean to you. We have no idea what that can do to change somebody, you know? So anyway, this went on for, like, let's say 2 years. So we go into high school, and nothing else is said, you know? We stop riding the school bus, and it is what it is, right? And I stopped talking to them, and they stopped talking to me, and I've got my girlfriends, and they've got, you know, whatever they're doing, and we kind of stopped interacting and talking. And then it was, like, our senior year, and it was towards the end of our senior year. I remember, it was, like, the month before our senior year, and the girl that I had grown up, like, the street over from, she and that girl had, like, remained friends all through, like, elementary, junior high, and high school. All through it, right? And, she came up to me, and she was like, hey, can I ask you something? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't realize I still had this thing. I didn't know where it was or whatever, you know? And she said, do you still have Buddy, the Snoopy dog? And I said, oh, I don't know, like, maybe somewhere. Why? And she was like, I would really like it because, like, for graduation, like, I want to give it, you know, to my friend. And I said, well, let me look and see, or something like that. I couldn't care less, you know? And I couldn't find it or whatever. Well, in high school, we did these things called senior wills, which I've talked about before. They were treacherous for me, but that's a different story. Because somebody in my class willed my ASS to the entire football team. So, imagine walking in to school the day of that. You know, that was really fun. So anyway, it was like these senior wills that you, like, willed people joking stuff. And in reading them, I read hers, and she willed her friend Buddy. And I can remember thinking, like, God, I wish I had, like, and that was weeks after she had asked me, you know, to return him, and I had never really even looked. And, she said, you know, or she said in the will, like, Buddy forever will be, like, ransomed or kidnapped. It was kind of funny, and, like, and kind of also, like, poking fun at the fact that, like, if I read it, like, I would know too, kind of whatever, you know? So we graduating class of 1990. And, I always think of that, like, last day, you know, that I, like, walked through those halls. And, like, high school and junior high and elementary was really hard for me. I got bullied a lot, right? But, like, you spend 12 years with these people. And you sit next to them in classes and you say hi to them and whatever, right? But, like, to think that, like, some of these people you'll never see again in your entire life is, like, crazy, right? So, I go on with my life. I really didn't expect to, like, cry this much in this video. My friend Mel, my book club partner the other day, she was talking about watching my vlogs, and she's like, I stop watching them when you start crying and get real emotional. I just can't handle it some days. I go, well, that's most days in my vlog. So anyway, we all graduate. Years go on. And years and years go on. You know, when we're in our 40s. And I see this Facebook post that the girl that I grew up with had passed away. And it's weird, you know, like when a contemporary of yours passes away. It's weird. It's different than when it's like a parent or a grandparent or something. It's weird, you know. And And I just was like filled with like, and she and I were never close. We were never like super close. It was only this one thing, right? But all of a sudden I started thinking about like this friend of hers that she had had and like what her friend must be going through or thinking or whatever, and had they stayed close and did they stay in contact through the years and whatever. And it was so weird because like a few weeks after that, like I keep a box of like all of my notes from high school that my friends and I passed around, and my yearbooks and everything like that. A couple weeks after that, I was going through it, and I was like looking for something that had to do with high school. And I was looking through it, and there was Buddy. Buddy, the plastic Snoopy ornament was in there, you know? And I think the thing that's strange is that sometimes we don't know how much something really means to somebody at the time. You know, to all of us at the time, it was just a stupid dog ornament, right? But for them, it was this symbol of their friendship that had gone back and forth long before I ever entered the picture, you know? And God knows how many countless ridiculous nights they talked about where's Buddy and let's get the candy bar, you know, to Peter and whatever. And maybe it's just a simple story, you know, and most stories are. But I think that really what it speaks to is friendship, you know? And the small little things that weave together to make friendships really strong. And like when I think about my friendship with my best friend, Tanya Jean, if I told you some of the things that make our friendship strong, that, you know, just like a fountain pop, you know, it's something that's so small to somebody. But, you know, for my friend to come pick me up and take me to get a fountain pop just means the world to me. So they aren't small things. They're big things. And in, you know, the reality, those are the things that really do make up life. And for me, it's the simple stories. Anyway, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.